Valhalla was no place for the faint of heart. Feasts of excess, drunken revelry, and brutal combat to the death weren't just events. They were a way of life in the Norsemen's version of paradise. Join me and the Vikings on their final journey to Valhalla and discover the fierce and fascinating world of the Viking paradise. This is Viking History with Magnus. In the Great Hall, a Viking bellows in triumph as his opponent crashes to the floor, and the crowd erupts in cheers. Few things stir the hearts of these battle-hardened warriors like a good brawl in the mighty hall of the god King Odin in Valhalla. This vast hall is a warrior's heaven, reserved for those who have fallen honorably in battle, handpicked by Odin himself. Here, in the endless golden chambers, the fallen live out eternity doing what they love most, fighting. Every day, the warriors of Valhalla prepare for Ragnarok, the end of the world. At dawn, they don helmets, chainmail, and weapons and head to the great plain of Idavul, outside Valhalla's towering walls. There, they battle from morning till night. If a warrior is slain in combat, he is instantly revived by Odin's fierce shield maidens, the Valkyries. The gods dwell in a realm called Asgard, a divine stronghold with many grand halls, Valhalla being just one of them. Only Odin's chosen fallen warriors may enter Valhalla. Inside, they may encounter the All-Father himself, his wife Frigg, the Valkyries, the ever-flowing goat Hadron, and the magical boar Serimnir. Other gods and creatures like Thor, the world tree, Yggdrasil, and the goddess Freya exist within Asgard, but not within the walls of Valhalla itself. When the sun sets, the bloodied and exhilarated warriors return to the hall for a feast unlike any other. They gorge on endless meat from Serimnir and drink rivers of mead from Hadron. As night deepens, the revelry only intensifies. Drunken warriors sing and shout until they're hoarse, while others play board games at long tables in one of Valhalla's 540 grand halls. By dawn, most have collapsed where they sat, full and satisfied, but when the rooster crows, they rise again, ready for another day of glorious battle and raucous celebration. This was the Norse vision of paradise, a mythological warrior's realm perfectly tailored to their battle-loving culture. For the Vikings, Valhalla wasn't just a legend, it was as real as the world they lived in. According to Norse mythology, the universe was made up of 9 realms, 2 of which served as the final destination for the souls of the dead. The first was Hell, the realm where all those who died of natural causes found themselves. In its earliest form, Hell was simply a resting place for departed souls, but over time, its nature changed. By the time of Snorri Sturluson's Edda in the 13th century, Hell had taken on a darker tone, increasingly resembling the Christian idea of hell. It became a shadowy, grim realm ruled by the goddess Hel. No soul wished to enter there. The Norse Hell also bore striking similarities to Greek mythology. Just as the underworld there was guarded by the hound Cerberus, the Norse version had its own fearsome watchdog, Garm. He would let out a blood-curdling howl whenever a new soul crossed into Hell's domain. If, on the other hand, a warrior fell in battle, his soul would ascend to the mighty fortress of Asgard to join Odin in his grand mead hall, Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain. Second only to combat, feasting was the Vikings' favorite pastime, so naturally the afterlife offered banquets each evening, with copious amounts of meat and mead. The meat came from Serimnir, a magical boar slaughtered daily by the cook Andrimnir and served to Odin's chosen warriors. By the next morning, Serimnir would be alive again, and there was no fear of running dry on mead. Atop Valhalla's roof lived the goat Hedron, who fed on the leaves of the great tree Laradar. From her udders flowed a never-ending stream of mead, filling a vast cauldron that was never empty. When it came to doomsday beliefs, Norse and Christian mythologies weren't so different. Both foresaw the end of the world brought about by massive natural catastrophes, followed by a rebirth. For the Vikings, this apocalyptic event was called Ragnarok. But whether a warrior would earn a place in Valhalla was Odin's decision alone. He determined the outcome of every battle, deciding who would fall and who would emerge victorious long before the first drop of blood hit the grass. Victory didn't matter, survival didn't matter. What mattered most to the Norse warrior was facing death with courage. A glorious death on the battlefield was the only true path to Valhalla. This belief fed a deep fear among the aging. To die frail and feeble, slipping away in a sickbed, was to be denied a place at Odin's side. Filling the grave with food and drink was a common ritual to ensure the deceased had something to eat on the journey. If the deceased was wealthy enough, he was also given a horse in the grave to ride in the afterlife. A poor farmer's grave contained little more than the deceased's favorite knife and some food, while a respected and wealthy Viking was given a grand burial with plenty of weapons and other necessities. The most prestigious burial was in a boat or ship. Plentiful grave goods brought honor and status to the whole family, so it was important to be generous regardless of social status. The most spectacular ceremonies often ended with the ship carrying the dead being pushed out to sea and set ablaze. Other times, the entire ship was buried inland. In some Scandinavian areas, chieftains were also laid to rest, unburned in so-called chamber graves. Here, Vikings gathered earth into a mound and created a hollow space inside, reinforced with carved wooden planks. The body was placed in the room along with its belongings. The more powerful the deceased, the larger the grave. If the dead person had high power and status, they might also be accompanied into death by a thrall. As an envoy of the Caliph in Baghdad, Ahmad ibn Fadlan was present by the Volga River. There he witnessed a dramatic Viking funeral, believed by historians to have been held for a chieftain. One day, a relative of the deceased stood before the gathered thralls, the slaves who had served the chieftain, and asked, "Who will die with him?" A female thrall stepped forward without hesitation. "I will," she said. From that moment, two other thralls were tasked with caring for her until the funeral pyre. They washed her feet, brought her beer to lift her spirits, and prepared her for what was to come. According to Fadlan, the woman sang often with a joy that seemed to foreshadow an approaching happiness, despite knowing full well her fate. Yet whatever joy she felt likely faded in the final days as she was led from tent to tent through the camp. There, the warriors waited. Before each man took her, he would repeat a ritual phrase, "Tell your master that I did this only out of love for him." The sexual act was intended to ensure that the essence of life, through the man's seed, would accompany the chieftain into the afterlife. The Vikings saw a powerful link between sex and death. In Fadlan's account from what is now Russia, the final act of the funeral ritual appears to prepare the dead chieftain for Odin and Valhalla. The female thrall is ritually stabbed repeatedly with a dagger, completing the offering. Fadlan notes that fully 1/3 of the chieftain's wealth was spent on mead for the post-burial feast. The mead itself held ritual importance. It was a sacred drink, believed to connect directly to the gods and the land of the dead, guiding the soul of the departed on its rightful path. It was often the goddess Hel or a Valkyrie who greeted the dead, though the sea goddess Ran was also said to claim those who drowned at sea. Skaldic poems speak of sea warriors who found themselves in Ran's embrace beneath the waves. Written sources suggest that Odin demanded human sacrifices. It's likely that the dream of reaching Valhalla inspired these costly offerings. Such gruesome sacrifices weren't deemed necessary when a Viking died of old age or illness, for those deaths could not earn them a place in Valhalla. To drift off peacefully from old age or to die in one's sickbed was considered the worst fate imaginable. A death without glory meant a journey to Hel's realm, a cold, dark, damp, and misty underworld ruled by Loki's daughter Hel. In Ibn Fadlan's texts, he describes the following ritual. On the deck of the ship lay a bench, and on it rested the body of the deceased chieftain. Beside him, the Vikings now placed the thrall woman they had strangled and stabbed to death. According to Norse belief, when the chieftain arrived in Odin's hall, he would take his place among the warriors awaiting the final judgment day, Ragnarok. On that day, they believed the giants, the Jotnar, would surge forth from the fiery realm of Muspelheim and gather before the shimmering Bifrost Bridge. At the sight of them, Heimdall, the god's ever-watchful guardian, would sound his mighty Gjallar horn, summoning the Aesir and the fallen warriors to arms. Led by the fearsome Surtur and his blazing sword, the giants would march across Bifrost, cracking the bridge under the sheer weight of their army. Then, the final battle would begin. The sun would go dark, the world would be flooded, and the stars would vanish from the sky. Odin would be devoured by the monstrous wolf, Fenrir, while Thor would slay the Midgard serpent with his mighty hammer, Mjolnir, only to stagger 9 steps before collapsing, dead from the serpent's venom. In the end, Surtur would strike the earth with his flaming sword, engulfing the world in fire. At last, the flames subside and the floodwaters retreat. Only 2 humans have survived, a woman named Liv and a man named Livthursir. From them, a new world will be born. And from the realm of the dead, Odin's sons Baldur and Hodur will return, rising to claim their father's vacant throne in the halls of Valhalla. The world had been reborn.